Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. If this is your first time here, buckle up. You're about to hear one of the most chilling true crime stories ever told. Today I'm diving deep into the nightmare of Dennis Rader, the man who hid for more than 30 years behind the perfect mask of a devoted husband, father, church council president, and Boy Scout leader in Wichita, Kansas. The guy who gave himself the nickname BTK, short for Bind, Torture, Kill. The monster who murdered 10 innocent people and then spent years taunting the media and police with letters, playing a twisted game of cat and mouse with an entire city. But we're going to start at the very beginning, because this monster didn't just appear out of nowhere. He grew up slowly, right beside us, in what looked like a completely normal family. Picture this. It's March 9th, 1945, in the small town of Pittsburgh, Kansas. Dennis Lynn Rader is born as the oldest of four brothers. His mom, Dorothea May, worked as a bookkeeper. His dad, William Elvin, was a former Marine and later worked at Kansas Gas Service. The family was deeply religious, members of Zion Lutheran Church. Dennis was baptized right there. On the outside, everything looked like a scene straight out of an American movie about the perfect Midwestern childhood. Both parents worked long hours, so Dennis felt a little neglected. His dad was strict and God-fearing, but never violent. Zero trauma like we usually hear about with serial killers. And that's actually one of the scariest details of this childhood. Later, the family moved to Wichita. Dennis grew up in an ordinary house, surrounded by chickens and rabbits, with a dog running around the yard. He went fishing, read comics and adventure books, and joined the Scouts. Scouting was his big passion. That's where he learned to tie knots and loops. Knots he would later use in a completely different way. He was an average, quiet kid at Riverview Elementary and then Wichita Heights High School, graduating in 1963. Friends described him as a boy with zero sense of humor, who always stayed in the background. No parties, no girlfriends. Just working as a bag boy at the grocery store to save up for his first car. But under that normal surface, something dark was already stirring. Dennis later admitted that even in elementary school, he had twisted fantasies about domination and helpless victims. One day, his mom was trying to move the couch, and her ring got caught on a spring. She got stuck and panicked, calling for help. Little Dennis, instead of rushing to save her, he felt a rush of excitement at the sight of a helpless woman. He later called that moment a turning point. From then on, he knew there was something very different inside him. He tortured animals, hanging cats and dogs in barn lofts, strangling them just for the thrill. The sight of chickens waiting to be slaughtered excited him. He stole women's clothes from neighbors, dressed up in them, spied on women through windows, and as a teenager, he started experimenting with autoerotic strangulation, tying his own hands and neck with rope. He did all of it in secret, while on the outside, he was the scout who took his little brothers fishing and helped in the garden. Just imagine, on the surface, a scout who never swore. But in secret, he was strangling cats and dreaming of trapping women. Have you ever heard of a kid who connected pleasure with suffering so early? Drop it in the comments. Does this scare you, or does it fascinate you how something like this could happen in a completely normal family. Rader himself said the monster was inside him from the beginning. It wasn't trauma, no beatings, no abuse. It was just there. And nobody, not his parents, not his teachers, not the priest, noticed a single thing. That's what makes it the most terrifying. The monster didn't suddenly appear. He simply grew up, right next to us, in the house next door. 1966. Dennis is 21 years old. On August 17th, he joins the United States Air Force. Basic training at Lackland Air Force Base in Texas. Then specialized training at Shepherd AFB, learning to install and maintain antennas. He gets transferred through bases: Brooklyn in Alabama, Kadena in Okinawa, Japan, Tachikawa near Tokyo, and also Korea, Turkey, and Greece. He rises to Staff Sergeant, earns medals for exemplary conduct, expert marksmanship, and the National Defense Service Medal. On paper, the perfect soldier. The military taught him discipline and planning, but it never killed what had been growing in his head since childhood. On August 12, 1970, he receives an honorable discharge. He returns to Wichita as a 25-year-old veteran. In 1971, he marries Paula Dietz in his Lutheran church. In 1973, their son Brian is born. They look like the perfect suburban couple. Dennis first works in the meat department at Liquors IGA, then at the Coleman Company factory, and that's exactly where he spots and begins stalking his first future victim, Julie Otero. On January 15, 1974, between 7 and 7:30 a.m., at the house on 803 North Edgemore, Dennis Rader cuts the phone lines. He breaks in, claiming he's a fugitive who needs a car and food. He ties up the entire family: Joseph Sr., 38, Julie, 34, Josephine, 11, and little Joseph Jr., 9. As he later described in court with ice-cold calm, first he put a plastic bag over Joseph Sr.'s head and tightened the cords, then moved on to Julie, strangling her with rope, and when 11-year-old Josephine woke up, he took her to the basement and hanged her on a sewer pipe. He lived out his darkest sexual fantasies at the crime scene, cleaned up the house, took a few items, and drove away in their car. He left behind 4 bodies, bound and strangled exactly the way he had practiced for years.
No, that was part of my, what you call fantasy. These people were selected.
All right, so you
Okay.
you were engaged in some kind of fantasy during this period of time?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, when you use the term fantasy, is this something you were doing for your personal pleasure?
Sexual fantasy, sir.
I see.
Just 3 months later, on April 4th, 1974, he strikes again, this time at 21-year-old Catherine Bright's apartment. He breaks in, waits for her to come home, and when she walks in, a fight breaks out. Her brother Kevin gets shot in the head, but miraculously survives, the only person who ever escaped BTK. The irony? That same year, Danny starts working at ADT Security Services, installing alarms in people's homes all over Wichita. The man terrorizing the city was teaching residents how to protect themselves from him. Isn't that one of the most horrifying ironies? This calm veteran and brand new father installing alarms and living a normal life, could murder 2 families and a young woman in just a few months with such cold, methodical precision. No one, not Paula, not the neighbors, noticed anything. In March 1977, he kills 24-year-old Shirley Vayen. He had been stalking her, broke in pretending to do a survey, tied her up with rope, and locked her 3 small children in the bathroom, telling them mommy was just going to sleep. A few months later, in December 1977, it's 25-year-old Nancy Fox's turn. He breaks into her apartment and strangles her with a rope, while living out his darkest fantasies at the scene. In April 1985, he kills his neighbor, 53-year-old Maureen Hedge. He called it Project Cookie. He strangled her with his bare hands, took bondage photos of her in the basement of his own church, and dumped her body in a ditch. In 1986, it's 28-year-old Vicky Wegerly. He dressed as a phone repairman, strangled her with a nylon stocking after a struggle, and took 3 Polaroid pictures. In January 1991, 62-year-old Dolores Davis. He throws a concrete block through the door, strangles her with pantyhose, and dumps the body under a bridge, slipping away for a moment from a scout camp. After 1991 comes a 13-year break from killing. Rader stops murdering, but he keeps living his double life, working as a city compliance officer in Park City, nicknamed the Dog Catcher, measuring grass to the millimeter, filming houses, and even killing a neighbor's dog. At Christ Lutheran Church, he becomes president of the church council, leads youth groups, and sings hymns. In secret, he continues breaking in and stealing lingerie. In 2004, he feels the world has forgotten him, so he comes back with a vengeance. He sends dozens of letters and packages. In one, he asks the police straight out, "Can I communicate through a floppy disk and not be traced to the computer? Be honest." The instruction? If the answer is yes, run an ad in the Wichita Eagle under the code Rex. It will be okay. The police play along. Rader believes it completely. In February 2005, he mails a purple 1.44 megabyte Memorex floppy disk to KSAS-TV. On it is a deleted Word document with metadata, Christ Lutheran Church, and last modified by Dennis. The very disk he brought to church to print the council meeting agenda becomes his downfall. But police still need rock-solid proof. Detectives learn that Rader's daughter Carrie, then a student at Kansas State University, gets annual pap smears at the campus clinic. With a court order, they pull a tissue sample from the archive. Within 24 hours, the lab confirms Carrie's DNA matches the biological evidence from BTK crime scenes. It's a 100% match. Carrie later said that if anyone had just asked, she would have given the sample willingly. On February 25, 2005, Dennis Rader is arrested while calmly driving his car. In a 16-hour interrogation, he confesses to everything. He's furious. "How could you lie to me?"
I need to ask, how can you lie? How can you lie?
Because I was trying to catch you.
On June 27, 2005, in Sedgwick County Court, Rader stands in an orange jumpsuit and, without blinking an eye, pleads guilty to 10 murders. He describes every single detail with surgical precision, calling the killings his projects. Judge Gregory L. Waller accepts every confession. On August 18, 2005, the sentence is handed down: 10 consecutive life sentences, a minimum of 175 years, with no possibility of parole. Rader is sent to El Dorado Correctional Facility, where he remains to this day. The victims' families stood in front of him and told him to his face that he was evil incarnate. Paula Dietz, his wife of 34 years, who had always believed in her perfect husband, filed for an emergency divorce on July 26, 2005. The judge granted it the same day. Paula received everything and disappeared from his life forever. Their children, Brian and Kerry, cut off all contact. Kerry later wrote the book Daughter of a Serial Killer, but eventually severed ties completely too. Rader was left totally alone. Isn't that the most terrifying irony of all? The man who spent 34 years building the image of the perfect father and church leader lost absolutely everything in just a few weeks. His wife, his kids, his freedom, and every ounce of respect. The only things left were 10 life sentences and the knowledge that his own daughter never wants to see or speak to him again.
In a quiet house on a silent street, someone listens to your heart